Welcome back to another episode of Treasures Galore. I am your host, Michael Elder, and I know I promised that I would do a video on our Unbreakable thread. I'm currently in the process of working on that. I didn't realize there was that many things in that book that could possibly be hints. So, the more I go through that children's book, the more I'm thinking that maybe it is a confirmer. You find an area that you think is where the lion's share treasure is hidden, and then it's a confirmer. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack, so I'm currently working on that. But the more I listen to this American Treasure podcast, the more I wanted to make a video about it because I believe it. K-Pro put it in the words of this: Dave Colonna is our new Dale. If you're not familiar with the Forrest Fenn hunt, Dale controlled a website, and Forrest Fenn put scrapbooks on there, and it was kind of the way of Forrest Fenn's communication. And Dale was really close with Forrest, did work with one of his relatives in the past. So this is our new way. So I know I keep repeating this, but Jack solved the Forrest Fenn hunt by a Forrest Fenn slip-up. And so, I mean, possibly maybe that's how this Forrest Fenn box is going to be found. So, in this podcast, so it's episode 3 of American Treasure, Dave Colonna. Check it out. It's on Spotify. I believe it's on Apple Podcasts as well. So, check it out, guys. I'm telling you, there's a lot of interesting stuff just in this episode alone. Episode 1 and 2 were great, but you guys need to check out this episode, especially if you're going for the Forrest Fenn box, because this is what this episode is about. So, I'm possibly going to make future videos just on this episode, but I really wanted to go through this. Now, I did allude to this in my last video, but I think it's really important. Check it out.
Solve. I did suffer from, and I think this is, natural. People shouldn't be too hard on themselves, but just be aware. I did suffer from some confirmation bias along the way. I remember I had been searching one area for quite some time in a lot of detail. I hadn't been able to find anything that looked like a blaze, because in Forrest's poem there was, a blaze, supposed to be some sort of like thing he had made to point you in the right direction. And I came across, it was like the next to last day of this several weeks I had been searching, and I came across this rock on the ground. And it had
a rock on the ground. Now think about that.
These carvings that looked very much like drawings, one of the drawings in his book. And I was like, holy crap, like what is this? Like, I knew these drawings like the back of my hand, so I saw these markings on this rock, and I was like, oh, this can't be a coincidence. And so I started trying to find other markings on the rock, and I kind of convinced myself that there was the large markings to get your attention, the smaller markings were kind of directing you where you need to go next.
He's saying markings. Now, in John Collins Black's poem, he says, if you can mark where warm waters halt, the white mark shows upon the seat. Is he telling us right here? Is he giving us what, the definition of what we're looking for out there?
Next. And it's interesting because several years later
Okay, sorry, I paused a little too quickly, but he says several years later. Here, let me just play it real quick. Listen to this.
Visited that, like after his treasure had been found, I went back, and I'm pretty sure like they were just naturally formed carvings. But at the time, I had convinced myself that there's just no way this could be natural. This has to be man-made, and it's either coincidence, like Indians carved this, or Forrest carved this. But at the end of the day, neither. So let's get this.
Okay, so I think that is very huge. He says a couple years after the treasure was found. So the treasure was found in 2020, right at the genesis of this project, right? And then he says he revisited this area a couple years after that. So puts us in somewhere of 2022. And in a similar, I believe it was in one of these podcasts, he said he hid them around that time. So I believe that he is explaining what this white mark on the seat is and what we're looking for near the where warm waters halt. Now, I know there are a few gaps in this theory, right? Because obviously, in my opinion, we're reverse engineering his solve because we're looking for where warm waters halt, and obviously that was the starting point of Fenn's poem. So, if he's searching this area, why would he be searching, you know, at where warm waters halt? And then also, you have at the beginning of the poem, he says, I cruise along a road I know and park my car just off the side near where I'd searched for heavy loads. So, this spot is near where he searched for heavy loads. So, I know there are some gaps, but him revisiting this area a few years after, to me, says either this is the spot where he hid his treasure chest, or he had multiple search areas and he wanted to go. And when he revisited a few years after, like he said, it possibly could be a when he was going to scout out the locations of where to hide the treasure chest, and maybe he had a few spots. He said he spent a few weeks in this area, so to me, spending a few weeks in one area, it's probably pretty personal, and it sounds like a really good spot to hide the treasure chest. So, anyways, I think this is huge. Like I said, I know there possibly are some gaps in this logic, but I think this podcast is going to be really big for us treasure hunters, especially once he goes into the other boxes and the lion share, and as it progresses. He also, this guy Dave Colonna, he also said that he wants emails of questions to JCB, and he does leave his email in there for you to email him possible questions and do a Q&A session with John Collins Black. So I think that's huge. If you do send questions, make sure they're good. Now, I don't know John Collins Black, and just basing it off of my experience with the Forrest Fenn hunt, Forrest Fenn did these things. He did, the 6 or 8 questions. I can't remember what it was called, but people would word these questions weirdly or not correctly, and then Forrest would just bounce around the question. So let's make sure if you do send questions, they're to the point to where they'd have to be answered directly. Now, not saying your question is going to get picked, but if you do send questions, make sure it's in that format. So, I think it's big. I would really like to know what you guys think about this. So, I will see you guys in the next video, possibly our unbreakable thread, or maybe something completely else. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.